I'm sure he will.
Okay, as I said, I've worked on both extremes. Lord of the Rings or Spider-Man 3 versus uh, no budget at all. Um, I mean, what I see, I mean, especially the past 5 years, I would say, some of my Hollywood shows being done in India as well. And of course, you time and again you doing it, and Biren is doing it. And also, I'd seen. I mean, there's a small difference between what Biren doing and what you're doing. We come to you as a supervisors. We come to you. We come to you and we say like, so we need this to be done. So we trust and we go by with the history of what your studio has done, what MPC has done, what Rhythm and Hughes or anybody has done, or even what Veta has done. As a supervisor, the primary importance to me is like, how am I going to, my designs are more important to me, and who's going to support my design in terms of the post-production, then how am I going to make it simpler for them or make it more complicated to them. So when I go through this process and I come up with looking at the team, looking at the studios, looking at the artist backgrounds, and say that okay, these guys are okay. If somebody wants to do tsunami, they want to do 2012, or they want to do like day after tomorrow kind of tsunami. There's a company called Scanline, and you just go to them because they are their USP is creating water. I mean, of course, you've done some fantastic water in Life of Pi, without taking away the credit. I mean, they're specialized in one particular area. I mean, Rhythm and Hughes initially they specialized in animation creatures, talking and stuff like that, right from cats and dogs days. Um, so the specialization is something very very important for any studios to sustain. That's number one. Number two, when I see the talent, India versus the Westerners or India versus the rest of the global, I mean, rest of the kind of, world, I don't see, is there any, dearth of talent or they lack into something? It's nothing of the sort. I mean, I would rather say that we are more passionate. I mean, we want to go and get the Oscars, we want to go and get the global awards because we are passionate to go and get it. If you look the other way around, if for an American, the Academy Awards is nothing but a local award. So it happens all the time there. So um, of course, I mean, they're all passionate. Of course, all the visual effects artists all over the world are they very passionate about it. And any award is an award. That's the biggest motivation for artists like us. But when I worked with some of the shorts in India, some of the shorts in New Zealand, some of the shorts in US or Canada or UK, I mean, it's quite interesting that barring the language and culture, the approach is the same. The tools are the same. What the notes that goes from me, which goes to an American or which goes to an Indian, the same notes that I'm sending to both of them. I mean, the only difference that I see at this point in time, as I said, the leadership qualities within the production management. The digital effects supervisors attached to the studios, like how good they are, how good they handshake with me, how good they understand what I'm talking about, and how good the production supervisors that you have, who can manage the team effectively to make it really happen. Those are the two areas I think still we have to gear it up. Other than that, I'm looking at the artists, like they are fantastic. They like to work for 24 hours a day, non-stop for a week and months, because they're so passionate because their pixel is being watched by billions of people all around the world, even if it is going to be one pixel on the screen. That's what they have done. Even a roto artist, like taking out one pixel from that, his work has been there as long as Lord of the Rings, or Spider-Man's or any of this thing on the shelf. So that's a passion. As the only thing that I see, the digital effects supervisors and the production supervisors, like if they can gear up and come to a level, I think we can do some world-class products at Indian price.
So I'm just going to make this simple. I think what we've heard so far, and that's the topic for today. Uh, how many of you in the room remember what the topic for today is? Yes, please put your hand up. Nobody. Okay, good. That's fine. Then we can say what we like. But the topic for this evening was, how do we take this expertise that is now beginning to work with the world's best, and how can we use those technologies, tools, and experience to make efficient VFX for India? That's what we are actually in this room to discuss. But we can discuss anything you want because it's a great panel. But so coming back to that question, Akori has posed a problem for us. He says, that I am usually able to work for a Hollywood film. Let's say the film is $100 million for sake of discussion. The largest item in the budget after the actor and the actress's salary is usually the budget today for visual effects. So in a big $100 million movie, the visual effects budget could be 20, 30, 40, 50 million. It could be anything depending on the requirement of that particular movie. Now, when we bring that into a studio anywhere in the world, you have to make those many shots which require those many number of people working on it. But the problem that we face in our country, in our economy, is that the total budget available will be much smaller. And if we have to make those shots for a local market, we still have to create fire, water, rain, creatures, etc., etc. So how can we do this without a tremendous drop in the quality of what we do? And of course there'll be answers there which could be creative, and they could be technological, and they could be other things. So I will turn to you, Arul, that you are straddling this space. By the way, Arul, for those of you who came and saw IT.biz last week, he was given a challenge by the secretary ITBT that we want to create a character, a mascot for Bangalore. Yakshagana inspired character for Bangalore. And so what we did was we helped from my studio with a little bit of art, and then Arul went away to do his digital magic, as that's what he calls it. And we created a virtual character which was shown mocapped at the IT.biz. It's called BitGen, short for Bangalore IT Genie. And I think the purpose of what we are talking about is to create characters where you don't have an actor or an actress. Because you do not normally find actors very easily of the caliber of Ramesh, right? So, when we don't find them, we have to create something virtual. That is when we have to go to Arul. And even when we want Ramesh to jump from a spacecraft and land on Mars and then back on Earth, we don't want you to do that because the life insurance won't cover. So visual effects comes into all those things. For those of you who have seen Gravity, you can really believe that you are in space. And the power and the beauty of visual effects is, if you can make out it's an effect, then we have lost the game. Then we have failed in what we were creating. If you can see it's an effect, we have failed. If you can't see it's an effect, it's beautiful. So coming back to the question, now that we have to do the same amount of movie, okay, because we have one of Bangalore's most eminent producers, he's got a certain budget. Yes. You can't tell him that you have to change your budget only because I'm doing visual effects for you. So what will you do? You have to create those 200 shots for him. How will you do it to a standard? Please tell me. Sure.
Yeah, so my connect with the Kannada industry goes very long back. I think 1996 I did the Shanti Shanti Shanti. That was the first visual effects in Kannada. And after that, I think we have done really a lot of movies every year. So, how to save cost? I see VFX not in isolation in a movie production process. VFX is considered to be a luxury or an expensive thing, but intelligently used, it could be a cost saver. So I can give some practical tips out of, I worked, I think more than 350 feature films so far. Mostly Indian, but of course some Hollywood. Almost all languages, including some 3D stereoscopic movie, the first stereoscopic movie in India, My Dear Kutti Chatan. So in this entire process, in the journey, many times I felt I ran ahead of technology. So I have to create technology for my solutions. Just like last week's real-time cartoon animation thing. This process I started in 2004. I felt that one day cartoon animation could be produced, and I'm in the journey of making a workflow where you can feed the script and the character will understand and it will come alive. May not happen tomorrow, but I'm sure one day I'll make it happen. Yeah. Thank you.
Can you explain the special effects and VFX?
Okay, very simple. VFX is mostly on the visual side, and SFX is on the audio. It's the industry practice. Mostly sound effects is SFX, and the visual effects is VFX. Just now I got the SFX VFX thing, but generally SFX is for audio. Okay, going back to how to save cost. we'll take some example. See, India is challenged with this budget limitations. One reason is Hollywood is making maybe, I don't know how many movies per year? 500, 400? Yeah, say 500 movies, but all in one language. But India is making 1,000 movies, I think in more than 10 languages. So that is a challenge because the budget is split, your audience is split, and your geography, how much you can reach is reduced. Yeah, but at the same time, your expectation is to produce at the cost of 10% of the actual budget of Hollywood movie, or sometimes even 5%. Your producer or director expect the same quality. So how is it possible? We are paying custom duty for importing equipments. The electricity fee bill is very high compared to any other country. The only thing that is available cheap is human labor. But what is the quality of the human labor? That is very questionable, not because that we are not talented. Our education system is not conducive enough for the creative industry. Mostly we are, more on the engineering and other side. Anyway, so how to save cost practically? As I said, India has so many languages. Suppose if a film is produced in, say, Telugu or Tamil or Kannada, it also has an opportunity to be remade in other languages. So most of the time, it is possible the movie could be planned in such a way, many of these layers could be preserved and it could be sold by the producer to the person who is buying the right. Example, a car explosion. Car explosion is going to be same. I think mostly the remade films, they copy frame to frame. So it's very easy to use these assets. Also, studios can collaborate. Suppose a studio which is doing a visual effects in Chennai, somebody in Bangalore and somebody in Hyderabad, they can create assets which could be shared because they may not be competing in many situations. Of course, they are competing, they cannot share. But if they are not competing, they can always sell these assets, which could be, the one thing which I notice most of the time, which is very horrible, but I have to comment on that. These explosions and fire, the fire shots are very badly done because people try to create it digitally, and I think only now because of this GPU technology I can see that this kind of natural phenomena it is possible to create digitally. Otherwise it's better to shoot the the footages and comp. So this kind of stock libraries could be created which could be shared or which could be sold also. And there is another interesting thing which I've been doing for a very long time for all my, any production I do, even if it's a short film or an advertisement, I do previs. People use previs only for doing visual effect shots, but I use previs for the full production. And I'm planning to make a complete movie after doing a complete previs. That includes audio, even music, everything. So you can see the movie in whole totality. You need not only judge. You can ask your driver, you can ask your cook, you can ask any who is going to be the final consumer of that production. They can see the movie and they can give their comment. So even before you go to the first day of shoot, you can save the project. Many times I've seen the producers releasing the movie on Friday, they can't judge the outcome on Saturday, Sunday, but anyway it will run. On Monday morning you will realize that the script is not working out. Maybe the particular plot is not good. Too late.
So that's a very important point. I think if you take the Indian film industry, like all our other industries, we always believe that we do not have time to develop it first and then make it. But I would say that the success rate of movies in India might go up quite dramatically if you are able to do this previs beforehand and understand where is the audience excited, which parts are too long. Because today, even in India, including our labor cost, which I will disagree with you, I think our labor cost is getting higher and higher. Then what happens is that this system, which is normal in Hollywood, that people will see a movie before it's made, and unfortunately executives see it, not creatives. You know the problem with executives seeing movies. But what happens really is that you are able to judge this entire film and you can cut out the sequence where you went and when shot one song in Ooty which is not working, or you did something else which was a fight scene heavily choreographed, or you spent money on visual effects which is very expensive and then you cut out that scene in the end. So as the complexity gets higher, the tools of using technology to see a movie before it's made is very and 3 to 4 years from now, I was in a research lab in the US. They give you wristbands. People who make ad commercials for 2 minutes, they give you wristbands, and those wristbands can track at which stage you are feeling happy about watching, which stages you are bored, and they can actually tell by when they're watching the movie how this audience is going to react to certain scenes. So obviously, if you have an ad commercial where a man is dreaming about this wonderful girl and she's walking, but actually it's a commercial for a car. In the end, you realize it's a car. So when this advertisement is shown to audiences, you can see that in the wristbands of the ladies, they like different parts, and the wristbands of the gents, they like different parts of the ad commercial. But this is the way today to use technology in order to save money to do that. So thank you for all those tips. You got $1 million of advice free of cost from Arul this afternoon. Yeah. I'm going to change tracks here because we've talked about making movies in India. We've talked about how the visual effects industry works as a partner of the director, as a partner of the producer, as a partner of the studio, and we have not yet seen a visual effects movie being launched in a manner to build a brand like we see in other parts of the world. So today, Fast and Furious is a franchise. Okay, or today, if you have any of the big action movies from abroad, they're franchises. One of the bold things that Naveen, our model entrepreneur for this afternoon, is going to talk about is his vision is not just to create the integrated studio that can service all directors, producers, cinematographers in one location in Bangalore, but his model is to invest in creating IP. So can you tell me that you first of all been bold enough to go and create this big studio, but now you're telling me you're even bolder by going to create your own IP. So can you give us your logic, your thinking, your inspiration for that, please?
Well, I think inspiration, I think we all have the big players set out in the US, namely Pixar, DreamWorks, ILM for some reasons. But I think when George Lucas set out to create his own visual effects for his own film, basically that was his own IP that he was creating. And he didn't actually figure out a studio to do that. In fact, he went and invented technology that was later converted into a whole studio called Industrial Light Magic. Now, that is the scenario that possibly that I want to get into. And when I say IP, I definitely mean to create global brands on the same lines as what Pixar did, the same lines as what DreamWorks has done, and so on and so forth. I think that has to be really done if the company has to survive more than the project. I think that's one of the key things that a lot of entrepreneurs miss, is that it's not just the project. I think in the media and entertainment sector, we are always focused on a particular project. But I think looking beyond the project is what really matters. And you can actually look beyond the project only if you do IP. That's my single most belief.
So at this point of time, I'm going to ask Akori to show us some stuff and talk us through some of that, right?
So in fact, before I do that, yeah, I know. I will. So I think we talked about, I mentioned the 4 pillars of what goes into making a good VFX community, and I think we kind of agreed that while the level of artistic talent is there, I think where we normally have seen things stumble is the technology and the budget aspect. But those things will change. It's a fact that it's a fact of life in our economy. Dr. Prahlad once came up with a beautiful phrase. He talked about the bottom of the pyramid, right? And I think we all need to realize that, for something to grow here, we need to focus on our equivalent of the bottom of the pyramid. And I think there are examples replete of how you can innovate, how you can, come up with innovative solutions and bring down the costs. But what I want to show you is that once we have all these 4 pillars, once we have the artistic talent, the level of supervision that we have, once we have the technology, and once we also have the money, what can we expect to see? Yes, Vishu, can you put the lights down, please? And so this is what we can create when everything comes together, and hopefully you'll create it here as well.